Well, 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 hello everyone. Welcome, welcome once again to Satsang. Broadcasting live from the Pecos National Historical Park and enjoying a cool but beautiful day here in northern New Mexico. Thank you all for joining me, as always, and so good to see people as they arrive. And as you arrive, remember what this is about. You know, one of the most important things about the whole spiritual journey is providing yourself ample time to be able to put your attention on yourself. And by that, I don't mean on the egoic mind, on your ambitions, desires, and all of that kind of stuff. What I mean is on yourself, right? Just that quiet, that beautiful, simple, quiet presence that is always there. The presence you notice if for a moment thought stops. Like in meditation, or even if you listen to me speak slowly, you'll notice that while the attention is on what I'm saying, there's a gap in between the thoughts. And because your attention is listening for what I'm going to say, hopefully, you're not generating thoughts in those moments. And that beautiful space between is where we can touch in, to kind of clue in to that quiet presence, which is always there. I mean, most of the time there's a chatter going on in our minds, right? It's pretty normal. It's pretty much what everyone experiences. But the in between every thought, there's just a little gap, or a moment when you're not thinking. Something, surprises you. Something grabs your attention all of a sudden. Be a sunset or a laughing child or something, and suddenly it stops for a second. You're still there. Bringing our attention to that quiet, that silence that is behind and underneath all of the sounds. That's what satsang is all about. It is a communion with being. Right? It's just the quiet sense of being. Not the thinking about being, but the actual experience of being. You just are. That silence, by the way, is you. Silence is your nature. Being is what is. It doesn't have to think. It doesn't have to do. It doesn't have to act. It doesn't have to plan. It doesn't have to strategize. It doesn't have to do any of those things. And so instead, it just is. It is effortless being. To be requires absolutely no effort on your part. None. And that is such a mind blower. Because we've all been raised to achieve, right? We've all been raised to get the good grades, get the good job, get the girl, get the guy, get the right relationship, get the house, get the stuff, achieve, succeed. And, the whole modern personal development movement is really all about succeeding, isn't it? And achieving and getting the life of your dreams and all that sort of stuff. You never hear any of that talk about being. Just be. Dogs don't aspire. Cats, animals, trees, they don't aspire to anything. They just are. Right? So all of that ambition and aspiration, which in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not trying to say one should just sit around chanting Om all day. But what I'm saying is that it doesn't define you. And there's such an emphasis on it that how often do you hear somebody say, you know what, Just be quiet. Just sit in the stillness. Listen to the silence of your own being. Never. We never hear it. It is always about the next thing to do, the next place to go, the next adventure, the next accomplishment. You don't have to do anything to be. That is what I do all the time when I'm leading a meditation. I'm guiding us back to the place where you don't have to do anything. You just are. And of course this is difficult for a lot of people because of the training we've gotten and because the mind has been engaged in doing your whole life. We don't know how to set the mind aside for a second and go, you know, I don't need you right now. I'll get back to you later. And just be present. It's one of the things I love to do when I do things, when I do a satsang outside, which I'm not going to be able to do much longer, and I'm still on the lookout for a place to live or an office. Before satsang, I like to just sit, because I'm outside someplace, especially here where it's relatively quiet, a bit of activity today, but it's relatively quiet. Just hear the birds, feel the wind blowing against my face, looking the sun glistening off of leaves and the like, and the trees moving. It's all life silently. So I invite you to use satsang as an opportunity to experience that. Even in the answers, we're, be opening it up here for questions in a moment. But all of the questions, let them arise from the place not of achieving, right? But let them arise from the place that wants to connect into that stillness. That wants to know who you are in such a way that there's nothing left to strive for. And then let the answers always point you back there, not to an intellectual answer, not to a conceptual answer, but to an answer that really strikes right into the heart, that quiets the mind rather than stimulates it for more questions. So on that note, I'm going to take a sip of some kombucha. All gone. And say hello to everyone. Rosario, you're always one of the first here. Wonderful. John Sheehan in blustery Ireland. Liza on the East Coast. David and Elaine, my good friends in Southeast England. Roberto, good to see you, my friend. Brian in Virginia, hello to you. Christine in Germany, hello, Christine. Ursula, Madeira Island, Portugal. Eva in Poland, hello, Eva. Penny, hello, Penny, who's up in British Columbia, Victoria. Ava, Penny, thank you. Penny, they restored internet about an hour ago. Oh, you guys are having a conversation, I guess. Oh, maybe you were tapping buddies. Dale, hi, GP. Finally able to join again from Massachusetts. Been catching your satsangs as recordings lately. Good luck with your new radio program. Looking forward to it. I am too. I actually had to record a promotional video, a 30-second spot. I haven't done that in years, since I used to do voiceovers and like for radio. So pretty funny. I have to do that. Tomorrow's the test, and Tuesday is our first live show, 1 p.m. Eastern. I'll be sending an email out to everyone about it. Dale says, I definitely have more energy after learning to exist more in an effortless being. Sometimes this means I wake up a few hours into my sleep. Any tips on meditation techniques to get back to sleep? It continues, sometimes I enjoy the peace in the middle of the night, but sometimes I want to make sure I get back to sleep. I've read a lot about humans used to sleep in 2 phases before artificial lights came. Yes, that's very possible. But the first thing I would say, any tips on getting back to sleep? No. Don't try, right? If you try and you can't, you've got a conflict going on, right? So instead, just kind of sink into that moment. Right? There's nothing to do in that moment, is there? Right? There's nothing to accomplish, right? You're not going to get up and get to work. So just use that opportunity to simply be present with your own presence. Focus your attention on the sense I am. And you'll either go back to sleep or you won't, but you'll be rested. You won't need to get back to sleep. Oftentimes there's a fear, oh my God, if I don't get enough sleep, tomorrow's going to be horrible, lots of bad things are going to happen. I'm not going to be myself. It's just a belief. It really is just a belief. It's not true. But if we believe it, we experience it. And therefore we think the belief was true. But in fact it was our belief in it that created the experience. This is the ignorance of the mind that perpetuates things that simply aren't so. So don't try to get back to sleep. Don't even want to. Just be present. And believe me, the body will normalize itself over time. It knows what it needs. You don't have to worry about it. Nature knows what it needs. Right? And yes, for the vast majority of human existence, we did not have light bulbs. Right? We had fire, right? But we were pretty much in sync with the earth. When the sun went down, we didn't work. We'd maybe have a fire and do things. And the sun came up, we worked. Right, so we were governed by that. We didn't have incandescent light bulbs and TVs going and alarm clocks and all of that sort of stuff. Completely artificial. And it got even worse, really. Up to the industrial age, it was simply, we were working the farms anyway, so everything was still in that kind of cycle. But in the industrial age, when they basically forced people out of the farms to work in factories, suddenly it became very regimented. You had to be at work at a certain time, right? Because the factory had to go. And everything has been completely unnatural for human beings ever since. The idea of some kid going to school at 7 o'clock in the morning is cruel and ridiculous. Get up when they get up, and get educated when they get educated. So, number one thing, don't make a big deal out of it. Right? Don't try to get back to sleep. Right? Because all that does is create conflict. Right? I can't get back to sleep. Oh, I got to get back to sleep. Right? You can feel it. There's a tension there. Of course, the more tension is, how do you get back to sleep? Just completely surrender to that moment and just watch where it goes. And let me know what happens. Happens a lot. Lately, that's been happening to me a lot. I'll wake up maybe anywhere between 12 and 3. I'll be awake for a couple hours, and I'll fall back asleep again. Right? Pretty much all the time. And I've always been a light sleeper, and I've never really slept. Since I became an adult, I never really slept a long time. My 30s and well into my 40s, I slept 4 hours a night. I'd go to bed at midnight. I would wake up every morning at 4. No alarm clock, no nothing. I just didn't need the sleep. Not everybody's different, right? So just let yourself find your natural cycle. Robert, hi to you, sir. Much love to you. John in Glasgow. Hello, John. Tesco2 says namaste. Namaste to you. Robert said, today was walking through the forest without thinking it's a forest. Life's good. Yes, just experiencing it as this. The moment we name something, it becomes an object of mind. And when it becomes an object of mind, it becomes an abstraction. And immediately, the mind starts creating a story about it. Before we know it, we're not in this. We're in a forest, which is a concept. Right? This isn't a forest. Right? That's an idea. It's a name we give it. And the moment I give it a name, I put it in a box. And at that moment, I stop actually experiencing what we've named a forest. It's powerful to recognize that, because this is name and form are the opposite of spiritual non-dual insight. Everything is named, right? And we give it a form. So we think that's a tree, and this is the shape of the tree. But how do you separate the tree from the earth, from the sun, from the atmosphere, from all of the things around it, from the critters that live in it and under it, and all the elements of the earth that go into it, both um, sentient and non-sentient, the minerals and stuff in the thing, plus all the worms and every. How do you separate it? The way you separate it is you give it a name. You make it an object of mind. And now the tree is taken out of the forest, and it's just this object. The same thing, I can talk about a leaf, right? Now I've got a leaf, and now there's like no tree. There's no such thing as a leaf without a tree. Are you following? And so when we step out of mind, there's just this pure experience of things as they are, because there's no name for it. It even ceases to have a form. It's just the pure, singular experience of everything all at once. Beautiful. Anja, hello G. And all, thank you for this beautiful meditation this week. Oh, you're welcome. The radio show launching on Tuesday, and my EFT class coming to a close. I'll be doing some more meditations, because I haven't done a whole lot of them lately. Just haven't had the time. Penny, Ava, so glad came back just in time for GP Satsang. Wonderful, wonderful. Hi all from Robert. Again, hi Robert. People share and like. We need to spread Mr. G. Ah yes, that's right. Please, share and like. Like me. Please like me. Ah, wonderful. Thank you for mentioning that, Robert. I always forget. Please, yes. It really does help. Every little click with a thumbs up. YouTube takes that as engagement. And the more engagement there is, the more they share it with others. That's the way this world works. Anne, good to have you back. We'll watch for your email. Please put your link for donations in chat, as haven't gotten when. Send email requesting same. Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I will do that. There it is. I'll just put it up there. gpwalsh.com/donate. Couldn't get any easier. Thank you for mentioning it. I keep forgetting to do that myself, but I would say a good chunk of the, not the majority, but maybe 30%, 30 to 40% of the costs of doing business and living are paid for by donations. So they really do help when they come in. It really does make a huge difference for me, and boy, do I appreciate them. Because the radio show is free. Well, it's not free for me. It's free for anybody listening. But for me, I actually have to pay for the services and the people and all the stuff to get it going. The same with, YouTube is free for broadcasting and the like, but all the equipment I have and everything that goes into it are all expenses. And on Satsang, I just refuse to advertise. I won't monetize these videos. The meditations, the same thing. I've never monetized anything on YouTube. I just don't like that, somebody turning into a spiritual show, and then there's this commercial for hairspray or something. It just doesn't work. Or somebody, the latest diet. I can't control what they stick in front of it, so I just don't want it. I'd rather all just kind of sharing this together. So thank you for mentioning that. Oops, and lost my place there, and I won't leave this up the entire time, but it's really simple. Just gpwalsh.com/donate/give me money. Dale, yeah, the only problem with sitting in the park here, where I have the reception, is car start. because you get to see this beautiful tree behind me, but I'm kind of looking at the parking lot. But right over there is a beautiful scene of the old ruins of the cathedral, um, and the like. So Dale says, regarding sleep questions, yes, I normally have no issues anymore, even if I don't get back to sleep right away. But maybe a habit of feeling I need to make sure I slept that is deep-seated. Yes. Very good. Notice that. Just notice that. That there might be some kind of residual thing in there saying you should be getting X amount of sleep. And also, it's something to be we can be subtle for. Remember, when we get down, really down into the deep layers, we aren't disconnected from others. And sometimes you will hear in your welling up within yourself a belief that isn't actually yours. It's a general belief, right? And one of the ways we can learn to heal and help heal the world is to recognize that sometimes the needs of humanity will appear as some kind of bubbling up from what you think is your unconscious. The reality is there's the unconscious is the earth. It is everything and everyone. It isn't personal or private. And so there's a general belief that you must get a certain amount of sleep. You must get a certain amount of vitamins, right? The minimum daily requirements of certain vitamins and that sort of thing, which is absolutely absurd because we have cycles over the year, right? It really should be the annual. You should be getting this every year, but it's cyclical, right? So things like come and go. But saying that it's a general belief that there's these hard and fast rules that people are supposed to live by, going all the way back to the Ten Commandments, right? It's not true. But when it arises like that, right, don't take any belief that arises personally, because they're not. They're not personal, right? Even if you're the only one that has that belief, it's not personal. You didn't choose it. It was just simply the way the system was programmed when you were young. And sometimes it isn't even you. And if you're aware of that, you'll begin to notice that there's a different flavor about it. There's a different quality about something that's arising, and it's not even your belief. Right? You become very, very sensitive to it. So, wow, a lot more people around here today than normal. Robert. Oh, lately I don't have much questions, but I have one. Why do some children get born in hard places and war zones? I see skeleton babies in Africa. Own karma? It makes me sad for them. That idea of karma has been used more as a stick to condemn and punish people than as an insight to liberate people, right? The ultimate answer to that is you should feel for them. You should feel that kind of compassion to them, and it should be felt deeply enough and movingly enough that you will that you'd want to do something about it. At least keep your own mind clear about it. Keep yourself open. Right? You know, when you see things like that, every particular part of the world has a particular consciousness about it, a particular state of mind. And it's not necessarily karma, but a way of thinking that emerges, right? Now, in our modern world, we think of everything in terms of material wealth. So we think the United States is great because it has a lot of money. When it's corrupt to the core, it's decadent. It has the worst set of values in the whole world. If you went to some of these places in Africa or South America and the like, and actually were with the people, you'd be absolutely shocked that our perception of them is coming completely from our idea of material wealth. And if you actually get to know them, they're kind, they're giving, they're open, right? If you look at it, I don't remember the last time I saw this, but there's a happiness index every now and then I hear coming from the UN. and they measure the happiness of people based on their contentment with their lives, and that they like their lives. Right? The United States consistently appears at the bottom. I mean, we're talking. The first time I heard it, it was when Eastern Europe was still relatively oppressed. I mean, it goes back and forth. Right now it's relatively open, but there's whispers of that happening again. We have several people here from Eastern Europe. But America's like below them. and countries like Bangladesh and Pakistan are higher, and countries in Africa. So when we see those pictures and stuff like that, remember that the news is showing us the very worst. They're not showing us what these people are like. I highly urge people to travel, to see, to talk to people for yourself. And I've been in a variety of countries around the world. Even when I went to Cozumel, right, which is like a diving capital, and it's, there's like this area of Cozumel where all the cruise ships stop, and it's all basically businesses coming from their Western businesses, and I just really couldn't stand it, so I just started walking back, right. Finally got where all the tourists are, and I found this other place, completely different, quite a bit set back. They had a spigot at the end of every street. They didn't have running water. There were these tiny little houses, and they were filled with these happy people. Found the same thing in South America, down in the most rural areas in Argentina. Absolutely happy, because they were never indoctrinated into having these expectations that made you an absolute servant to the economic system. In the U.S., it's all about achieving enormous wealth. So everything is about getting that wealth. The schooling, every decision you make, right? If you want to be in politics, you have to have the perfect wife or the perfect husband, right? Nothing is about you. What do you care about? What's important to you? I remember when the economy in Argentina was purposely crashed by the banks so they could get all the money out of it. It's right after Enron, and all the banks that were involved in the mess that Enron was were the same banks that basically collapsed the Argentine economy and took all the dollars out. People could only take like 250 pesos a month, which isn't enough to even to cover your expenses. And there were protests in the street, but the people were still happy. They were still getting along. They were still smiling, laughing, having fun. Here, that would have been just, you see what's happening. People are out and fighting and arguing and the like. So first off, take it with a grain of salt. It isn't nearly as bad as it's made out to be. Now, that's not to say there aren't areas that are extremely poor and that are really, really struggling, or in war zones and stuff like that. What do you do to that? Well, you have to look, what's the cause of war? Greed. Simple as that. The wars around are not being fought for any noble purpose. It's greed. Simple as that. They have resources, we want the resources. Right? I want to just dominate and control. And so you have to look at the systems of the world that give birth to this kind of thing. So no, it's not a personal karma, it's a world karma. We're all laboring under a value system that is corrupt and inhuman. And this is the result of it. Right? So really take the entire thing to heart. Rid yourself of greed. And greed is simply the idea that something external is going to satisfy me. Take what the news presents to you with a grain of salt, not ignoring it, right? But also not swallowing it hook, line, and sinker. Right? There's way more to what's going on than you realize. And you can even take that a step further. And you can literally hold these very same people in the highest light in your own consciousness. Right? Refuse to agree that they are somehow subject to some bad karma they did in the past, or some circumstance, or some political thing. Just shed yourself, shed yourself of every belief. Shed yourself of every belief that has anybody less than anything but absolutely perfect and whole. That is a powerful antidote to all of the nonsense that's going on in the world. Does that help you, Robert? And thank you for that question. You know, part of awakening is the awakening of the heart. Enlightenment doesn't happen here, it happens here. As a matter of fact, it happens here and it doesn't happen here. You haven't really made it. Something inside your heart just opens up and you cannot help but feel what other people feel. The suffering of all becomes your suffering. As it was put to Christ, he took on the sins of the world. That doesn't mean, the pictures of him is, oh, it's sad. No, he was so capable, so free of it all, that all of the sadness, all the pain, all the suffering of the world could be transmuted just by passing through his energy field. Let yourself be like that. Thank you, Robert. Wonderful. Penny! Hello, Penny. Thank you, GP. I needed it today. From your opening, just simply be that you had given me permission to rest and relax. I have to listen to my body to heal the soreness in my back, maybe from the tapping. Right. Yes. When there's a complete open space, when there's a complete opening, right? Yes, all of this stuff can come up, right? On its way out. Whereas before, we're holding it in place. So you listen to the body. You give it permission to do whatever it needs to do. And of course, you're in my tapping class right now, so you're doing a lot of this, which is simply a physical way of saying the same thing to the body. We accept you, we love you, you lead me. I'm not going to tell you what you're supposed to be doing. Okay, I'm going to take this down now. I don't need it up there anymore. Everybody's donate is donate, right? But please like and share. So that's the beauty of tapping. It's the beauty of a lot of everything I teach. Really, is this open spaciousness that allows for the purification of everything in the nervous system to happen. Really powerfully out of the unconscious patterns and into the conscious existence, and how that permeates the entire body, entire system, and beyond your body to the whole world. Because when you get down to that level, we are all one. David and Elaine, after an awakening, when the sense of a separate self falls away, a character with desires, preferences, and memories appears to remain. Is this character synonymous with the nervous system? Or evolves in tandem with it? And is that which is triggered when dealing with life issues? Thanks. Well, the false sense of a separate self, right, is a concept. It's an idea projected onto the conditioning, right? We identify with what in fact are nothing but the conditioned patterns of the body, right? And that's what creates the sense of a separate. I am that. Well, now, when that is seen to be, it's not really true, it is a projection, the various habit patterns of the nervous system are still there. Now, the moment they're not identified with anymore, they lose a lot of power, right? Because the thing holds in place is, I am that. But if I'm not that, immediately something else begins to work. But don't forget that in the nervous system, it has inherently in it the need to protect itself, to remain the same. So it's not you trying to do it, right? It's no longer the sense of a person trying to do it. We're now just aware of the way life functions. And now we get increasingly out of the way of it, increasingly disidentified with it, and we notice that it's not a character with desires, preferences, and memory that appears to remain. The desires, preferences, and memories remain, but no character. There's nobody there to own it. And without that, of course, they're going to shift. They're going to start moving. Memories are going to change. Preferences are going to change. The desires are going to change. And they'll naturally start gravitating more and more towards the place that's desire-free. And so it will evolve. It's actually a good word. When you're not identified with it anymore, it's natural functioning, right? If you don't keep cutting the tree, hacking back the tree to make Mickey Mouse topiary or something, it will just go its natural way. It'll take its natural shape. It'll evolve and grow just like it was meant to, and it will cause no more suffering, and it'll become a vehicle of self-expression because there's no character left. There's nobody there. It is simply the functioning of life. And when that is seen clearly, eventually you can turn around and realize that life is not separate from consciousness, but in fact consciousness is the substance of all life. That everything is made life is not made of something other than consciousness. Consciousness is the only vehicle of experience, and it is the only vehicle of creation. St. Paul put it beautifully. He said that which is made of that which is seen is made of that which cannot be seen. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. And by faith he meant the recognition of truth that could not be perceived by the senses. The evidence of things not seen. It's a beautiful, beautiful phrase. So the desires will be seen, and at first they may seem to have, still some kind of sway, but little by little the desires will just become like everything else in life. They're just part of life. They come and go, and they don't have any effect on you whatsoever. So, but remember, even after awakening, that sense of a separate self is also a habit of the nervous system, just like everything else. So when a desire arises, the habit is, right afterwards arises the sense of a self taking ownership for it. This is the way it happens, but when we realize that separate self is just a thought, we recognize it when it arises. Right? And that's the first thing that begins to dissolve. Oh, that's the thought projected on what arose. What the original thing that arose is quite natural. It's just part of life. The mistake, the artificial thing, is the sense of the person who owns it. And you see that too is now seen, whereas before you just thought it was you. Oh, that's me, right? It's my desire. Look really closely and you'll find that person who says it's my desire, that thought, that is my desire, is just a thought, and there's nobody there. The witnessing consciousness now recognizes that is a thought without an actual person or character attached to it, and that is its end. Because now it can't sustain. Your attention and belief in it is the only thing that sustains it. Without that, where does it go? Poof. Sometimes that poof can happen slowly, sometimes it could be absolutely instantaneously, and you find yourself in nirvana with the blink of an eye, which everyone eventually will anyway. So, is that answered for you, David, Lane? Sarah! Howdy, G. Love being here with my spiritual family. Sarah from France. We love having you. My spiritual powerhouse. Oop, there, skipped around on me again. Andre. Hello to you, Andre. Andre Suharu. Hands Together Piano. Hi from Pennsylvania. Hello to you. Hands Together Piano. Have you been here before? Always love to hear musicians. Mary from Niagara Falls. Hello, Mary. Anna in Poland. Hello, Anna. Linus. I've been meditating more than usual lately and been feeling some pressure and very slight pain in my head in the third eye area. It seems exactly where the pineal gland is. Any thoughts? Not complaining. He continues, it feels freeing, actually. Good. Good. Don't pay any attention to it, in the sense that don't make up any stories about it, right? There's a slight pain in my head, right? That's it. That's all that's happened. Anything other than that, even associating with the pineal gland or the third eye or meditation, is a story after the fact. What's the actual experience? I'm meditating. There's a slight pain here. And if you didn't know anything about the third eye or the pineal gland, it would just be this. If you weren't imagining that maybe there's some correlation between me meditating and this happening, it would just be this. The reality is, that's all it is. It has no cause, it has no effect, it has no future, it has no past. It is just a sensation in this part of your body, and don't make anything more out of it. There's a whole lot about the whole pineal gland thing, and then the strands of DNA in the multiple dimensions. I quite frankly, I don't get it, right? My expanded consciousness depends on this little blob of matter somewhere in my head? Really? And if this is it, if this is my spiritual awakening, and the body dies and the pineal gland completely deteriorates back into dust, where's that leave me? I got to wait till I get another pineal gland? Right? It's not real. We invest these things which are just appearances with qualities they don't actually possess. We're giving the qualities that belong to consciousness to this little blob of flesh. this little meat bag, right? All of a sudden is the determiner of the experience of me, infinite consciousness, right? Take all of this stuff with a grain of salt. People are really trying to anchor consciousness into a material model. The consciousness model and the material model are incompatible. Either it's consciousness or it's matter. If it's matter, it's nihilistic, Get what you can, because when it's over, it's over. Oblivion, an eternity of oblivion, of non-existence, this little tiny gap where here I am, came out of nowhere, and then it's gone. Complete oblivion. So somebody says nothing happens after you die. Well, nobody knows that, right? Because if nothing happens when you die, you'll never know the answer to that question, will you? Because if it's completely over when you die, it'll be completely over, so you'll never get the answer. So the only way you're going to get an answer is if it's not over, right? And the only way to determine that isn't to wait until it happens, but examine the nature of consciousness. Learn the nature of consciousness now, and then you'll see that it is completely independent of the body. The body will come and go. You'll still be here. The pineal gland will go. You'll still be here. The third eye will go. You'll still be here. The reptilian stem, your butt, all of it will go. But you will still be here, as you always are now. Are you not here? And are you ever anywhere but here? Come to know who that I actually is that is here. And you'll lose your fear of death, and you won't be the least bit concerned about some little blob of matter in your head. Does that help? Yeah, just take the story off of it, because the story is always created by the mind, and it's never true. And you can tell because it shifts over time, right? So this is the latest thing about it. Oh, no, consciousness is back over here in the ear somewhere. It's like the consciousness model and the material model are incompatible. Don't mix them up. Right? Don't mix them up, because they don't mix. Right? They're fire and water. Yeah. So, Talha Hansen. Hello, Talha. Greetings from Pakistan. Greetings to you. Also, you look... I don't recognize that name. I think you're new, too. Wonderful, wonderful. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Roberto, I am still with my pains in muscles, in neck, head, shoulders, fingers, plus pressure in my chest and tears. However, it feels like there's something waiting for me. Thank you for your help. Yes, there is something waiting for you, Roberto. You. You are waiting for you. All of the old false identification and fears, they're all being purged from you. Yes, it can cause a lot of stuff happening in the body, cause stuff happening in the mind and in the emotions, tears welling up and that sort of stuff. Stay the course, my friend. Stay the course. Right? All of that will pass. It is temporary. You're on the way to genuine self-realization. And it's worth it. No matter what price you have to pay, it is worth it. He adds, I would like to sleep like a log, which I have not been able for the last few months. Don't worry about that either. Right? Don't make it any deal out of it. It's just, I get this much sleep. Turn it into just this completely cold fact-based thing. Right? I slept this long. It was a deep sleep, it wasn't a deep sleep. That's it. Don't put any attached to it. I wish it was different. I'd like to sleep like a log. Like to sleep like a baby. The moment you attach that, I wish this was here and not that, you're creating suffering for yourself. You're creating a conflict where there isn't one. What's the actual fact? This is how much I slept last night. I woke up, fell back asleep. Woke up, fell back asleep. Attach nothing negative to it, and there'll be no negative consequence. It will simply be the way it happened. If I wake up tired, I wake up tired. Again, don't put any kind of negative consequence on it, and there won't be one. Oops. Hopefully that didn't drown me out. Maybe have a little bit of water left in here. Almost completely gone. So, let me go back here a little bit. Perfect Gentleman is back. So good. You need to teach the rest of us how to be that. Patricia. Hello, Patricia. Hi, G and friends. Late. White Rabbit Syndrome. I'm late. Thank you for being here. Much love to all. Thank you. Daryl. Hey, GP. I know of you have responded to this before, but please share again. What is truth? Truth is you. Truth is life. Truth is existence. Truth is self-awareness. What else could be true? What could actually look out into the world and say something is true except truth? You are truth. When that question gets asked, the mind immediately starts looking at theories and explanations and concepts and says, oh, what's the truth of that tree? Well, it depends on who's looking at it, right? If a poet's looking at it, right? Emily Dickinson is looking at it, Dickinson, it's a very different thing than a botanist looking at that tree, right? What's the truth of that tree? Well, the truth of that tree is the one looking at it, in the one looking at it. The truth is living. It is self-awareness. It's another name for God. It's another name for the awakened one. It's another name for Buddha. That is truth. Also, reality, right? Like I've mentioned before, Satsang, the word Sat in Sanskrit means truth. And it also means being. You are the truth. Right? What can recognize consciousness except consciousness? What can recognize awareness except awareness? What can perceive awareness other than awareness? What can perceive truth other than truth? How do you look at something and go, that's truth? That's true. You have to be truth to do that. Falsity can't do that. What recognizes beauty other than beauty? Right? So it's you. It's another name for me. It's another name for the self. It is the reality. It is what is. Right? Which means it's changeless, self-existent, self-validating, self-luminating. Right? Do you know that you are? How do you know? It's true. I am. How do you know? Because I'm the truth. So we have to shy away from, the world tries to define truth as something that is true, some kind of concept. And then we argue about it, we fight about it. Look at Facebook. It's just nothing but one argument after another, people asserting what the truth is. That's not truth, that's just a relative convention of the moment. But if one particular theory becomes dominant, well, then it justifies, squashing all the other stuff. But that's the mind. The mind wants to hold on. This is true, and that's not. And of course, it wreaks havoc. It's wreaking havoc all over the world right now. What people believe to be the truth. What is the actual truth? You. It is love. It is intelligence. It is what is. What absolutely is. Changeless, eternal, permanent, self-validating. Now, are you? You are, right? Which is simply that form of saying what is. You are what is, and that's the truth. And that's undeniable that you are. How's that? How's that, Daryl? Sultantillo. Hello. Any thoughts on self-discipline? I don't like it. It's useful to make ourselves do things we don't really want to do, right? But, when you're in love with somebody, you have to discipline yourself to think about them. Do you have to make it into a practice? Do you have to set aside a particular part of the day? I'm going to meditate on my beloved. No, it doesn't require discipline. You love it. If it requires discipline, it means to a certain extent there's a certain amount of artificiality to it. I used to practice music, and because I loved it, right? If somebody doesn't want to practice, it's because they don't love it, right? Now you can have some discipline about it, and of course there comes the times when I just didn't feel like doing it, and I would do it anyway because I knew that I wanted to keep it up. Because underlying it was my love of music and my love of being able to play, and I wanted to maintain that. So even when I wouldn't feel like it, I'd do it anyway. But that's not really discipline, right? It's like when you love somebody and you're in an intimate relationship, sometimes you just don't want to do something for them, right? But you do, because the overall energy is that love. If you have love, you don't need discipline. Right? People, I gotta meditate. I'm gonna meditate for 2 hours a day, and they make themselves do it. Where's the love? Right? If you're, I gotta make myself do the inquiry, right? No, fall in love with it. Then you won't have to make yourself do anything, and you won't need it. Right? Love does not require discipline. It is naturally motivating. So take that as a guide. Now that doesn't mean there are times when we absolutely must do things that we don't want to do, but don't make that the habit. Don't make that the rule, and certainly don't make that the path of spirituality, because it'll get you nowhere. Right? Nobody can maintain discipline that long. It's got to be a short thing. Okay, I got to do this for now, right? But if it becomes a way of life, there'll be no joy. There'll be no happiness. There'll be no love, because that energy just won't be there. Checking on batteries and the like here. One of the times in the park, my external battery that I used to help keep things going, I must have left it there, because it's gone now. So much to my chagrin, I just keep checking everything. Check all of the... all right, we're good. We're still good. I'm not going to be leaving you anytime shortly. So, does that help you, Sultantillo? I think you're new too. Well, maybe not. Hey, Jay. Good to see you. Himank. Hello, Himank. How best to tackle procrastination and unwillingness to perform your duty and dharma? Well, what I was just saying to Sultantillo a little bit ago. Um, if there's an unwillingness to perform your duty, I'd be questioning that duty. When things become duty, right, responsibility, there's no love in it. Right? Both Christ and Buddha had 3 temptations. Similar kind of story. They weren't the same temptations. We all know the temptations of Christ, but the temptations of Buddha aren't so familiar. The first was desire. He transcended desire. The second was fear. He transcended the fear. Right? He transcended it by recognizing that he was not the one who had desires. They just happened, but they were not him. Same thing with fear. They just happened, they were not him. They were not his fears. You have to identify with the separate self for them to be yours. The third one is very interesting. Remember, he was the son of a king. He was a prince. He was destined to become the king, and his father did all these things because it was predicted at his birth that he would either be a great sage or a great king. And of course, his father wanted him to be a great king. Didn't want to become a sage. Until he was completely blown away by the amount of suffering that he had seen, which he had been relatively insulated from, like every rich person is. That when he really saw it, it just broke his heart wide open, and he went on his search for the cure to suffering. His father was very unhappy about that because he wanted to be the king. But here's how the story culminates. After the first 2 temptations, the third one was social duty. Then Mara, kind of the Hindu equivalent of a devil, after tempting him with desire and with fear, said, "Well, son, you've overcome. You have the infinite wisdom at your disposal. It's time to go back home and be a really good king. Just think of all the good you're going to be able to do for your people." Well, fortunately for us, Siddhartha saw through that and became the Buddha. Duty is externally imposed. Love is internally expressed. Sometimes you have to perform your duty, right? You have no choice. Well, maybe you do. Maybe there are ways. Like being conscripted into the army. In some places, I've had some students, they've had to go over high school, 2 years of the army, and then off to college. There's many countries that are like that. They have to perform their duty. That duty is artificial. That country does not deserve to ask that, right? And you can see it's all imposed from the outside. And sometimes there's nothing you can do about that. But don't internalize that. What you got to do, you do. You just do it. But recognize, right, that this is not a spiritual relationship. This is a relationship you may have to fulfill, right? But make sure you don't turn it into a permanent way of being. Make sure that you do not succumb to that as a way of life, because that'll kill you. Right? It isn't all about duty. So you get people who they lose themselves. A career military person, somebody's 20 years in the military. It's all about duty and service. They get out. They have no idea who they are, right? Because they've never had the opportunity to explore their own loves, their own passions, their own interests, right? Because they hid behind that duty. And it actually stifles people's growth. So I hope that helps you. I mean, you've got to do the duty. The procrastination is simply an indication that your heart and your nervous system is saying, I don't want to do this. I really don't want to do this. So you have to do it. You have to do it. But that is not the way to live. That is not going to bring you happiness. Okay? Make sure that whatever that duty is, it has a hard stop at the end. And you don't turn that into a way of life. And you don't lose yourself in just your duty. Right? Be a Buddha. See through it. It's a temptation. It's an illusion. Thank you for that, Himank. Andre, dear GP, I realized, excuse me, that many of the things that we call ourselves are created using simple automatic behaviors, like I want that, or I never want to have that. In more unconscious people, it is very visible as they express easily, while in more conscious people, the behaviors are experienced as thoughts. Ah, good. I think I understand what you're after. I'm scrolling down a little bit to see if there's more to the question. But, okay. Yeah, where did you go? What we call ourselves is created using simple automatic behaviors. Yes, that's exactly correct. The automatic behaviors, they're natural to the nervous system. Every critter has them. Right? They're just part of the conditioning of the interaction with the life form and the environment, and everything does it. Everything is a reflection of the environment. There's this unity to the entire thing. What's strange about human beings is in this particular form, now the form, the body itself, is just like any other animal. It is in constant engagement with and expressing the nature of the environment as a whole. But the consciousness, right, that has come to inhabit this particular form is not of the environment. It is not born of the body. It is a virgin birth. It arises from somewhere else completely different. Self-awareness is not a product of the body, or the pineal gland, or the amygdala, or any of that sort of stuff. So, and yes, it's absolutely correct. They take the form of I want that, I don't want that. Oh, I got to avoid that at all cost. God, I hope I can get more of that. It's attachment and aversion that Buddha referred to as the cause of suffering, and it is. It's a huge cause of suffering, because if I have what I don't want, I suffer. If I want what I don't have, I suffer. Right? I create a sense of lack where there actually isn't one, because I've projected my good, my benefit, my happiness onto some external object. That is what Buddha meant by greed, not the overt avarice that we see around us. That's that same essence, only now magnified 1,000 times. In more unconscious people, it is very visible as they express easily, while in more conscious people, the behaviors are experienced as thoughts. Well, in unconscious people, they are identified with the conditioning. They don't see any separation. They don't see the conditioning as conditioning. They see it as myself. We all start there, by the way, right? So don't anybody think, I'm pretty cool, right? No, it doesn't work that. We all started that way. We all fell into that trap. We all experienced the fall. That's the original sin. Identifying with the body-mind and everything that goes with it. Right? As you become conscious, you begin to recognize conditioning as conditioning, and the separating of the sense of I, the sense of identity, from the conditioning begins to happen. It could be just a moment, it could be just a tiny little step, but that little door cracking open, it's going to open all the way, where eventually you will see yourself as you really are. Pure consciousness, in which the body is simply an image appearing in you and to you, and is made of you. Right? So, in a sense, if awakening is taking place thorough enough, just checking my battery here real quick. Looks okay, good. Then the conditioning is seen as conditioning, but it's not just thoughts, by the way. Right? You'll feel the impulse to act, and you'll see the thoughts that go with it, the emotions that go with it, the impulses, the memories, the associations. It's an entire package, right? So it isn't we're just experiencing it as a thought. The thought is, I am that. And if that's seen, that's the only thought you have to see. If I can see it, it can't be me. Right? But it's more than just thinking. The thoughts and emotions, there's a continuum of thoughts, emotions, and sensations, which is the sum total of experience. And all of those have conformed to a certain conditioned pattern. And if one sees that that is a conditioned pattern, and I am not that, so that thought, I am that, I am the body, I am my memories, I am my associations, I am my circumstances, I am this gender, I am this race, I am this age. Right? When that is seen as a thought about conditioning, the conditioning is just happening, it's innocent, there's nothing special about it. That thought, right, is the centerpiece, really, of awakening. Recognizing that that thought is a projection and it's not true. That thought is not questioned in the others, and therefore I am my conditioning. They can't even say that because they don't even know enough about the conditioning to realize that they're identified with it. So they don't even say, I am my conditioning. They're just living it. That's right. So if you're aware of the conditioning as a conditioned pattern and the strong impulse to identify with it, you're awake. You have stepped into the realm of the conscious ones. So, did I answer that correctly for you, Andre? Did I understand your question perfectly? Sultan Tio said, that was beautiful what you said about Jesus. Thank you. And then he says, I have YouTube Red. Do you get anything when I watch your videos, even though they are not monetized? No, I get nothing. I have to monetize them, or I get nothing. I think YouTube Red just gives you more access to paid you get more stuff rather than, and also the regular stuff you just get with YouTube. But nope, I don't get anything from that. And I have had some people donate to me here, with using the smart chat or something like that. But I'm still struggling with Google. They keep telling me I have to verify my address. I've done it 3 times. So there's a few $100s sitting there that I can't get. So please don't donate there. If you want to donate, no, wrong. Where did it go? Donate. Yeah, donate there. If you want to make a donation. So and no, they don't give me anything. We all give them a lot of free content, and they give nothing in between, right? So, I will accept sponsors for my radio show, people who want to basically donate to it. If somebody really has a product, because it is a radio show, it's not like Satsang, and I don't want this kind of stuff to have any kind of commercial overhead to it at all. But if somebody wants to buy commercial space in my radio show, it's just part of the deal, part of the radio show. There's segments. The station gets some, I get some, and that's just the format. 16 to 18 minutes, a break, 16 to 18 minutes. That's just the way it works. That's radio. So if it is a product that I believe in, that especially if I've tried it and I think it has integrity, I will allow that to be advertised. Somebody wants to sponsor it, which simply means a monthly donation, and you'll be listed as a sponsor, and you'll get mentioned and that sort of thing. So it is kind of a form of an advertisement, but not nearly as intrusive. So it's trying to navigate this world of commerce where most everything is driven by advertising. So thanks for asking that. Faith. Hey, my sheik. Hi. I would love to hear you talk about surrender or devotion, because I feel so tired fighting life rather than living it. Yeah. It is really tiring trying to row upstream, isn't it? All of our arguments with life, if you recognize that the nature of being itself, right, the nature of life is flow, isn't it? Right? Dogs don't struggle with life, cats don't. So what is it about us that has us fighting life rather than just living it, celebrating and enjoying it? Why is consciousness engaged in this rather than the sheer wonder of it? Well, it's not actually consciousness. One of the artifacts of the fact that this particular body form is the form in which consciousness is aware of itself. One of the artifacts, the consequences of it, is the ego. The ego arises, it's part of the nervous system, it's part of this whole structure. It's inevitable that it happened. And once again, consciousness mistakes the functioning of the nervous system for itself and breathes life into this ego, which in fact is nothing but a thought. So, what then is the surrender? The ego will never surrender. So any thought that this moment is not okay is the ego. Period. But you'll notice what's wrong with right now. You'll find if you just sit there in this moment, meditating, your mind will be going, this is too long, this is boring, this is good. We've gotten enough out of this, don't you think? Let's try something else. Or, boy, wouldn't it be great to have that? Oh, God, I hope she doesn't come back again. You can see all these little things, right? But take this moment right now, just as it is, and don't compare it to any other moment ever. An imagined better time in the future, or a better time in the past, or a worst time in the past, and an imagined feared worst time in the future. Just this moment, right now, without any reference point to anything else. Is there anything wrong? That's surrender. That's devotion. The desire to do that, to actually allow this moment to be purely itself without any kind of reference or comparing to any other time, the willingness to do that is devotion to the truth. That's devotion to God. That is surrender to the Almighty. Surrender to the truth. Surrender to the I am in this moment. Do you ever experience yourself in the past? Do you ever experience yourself in the future? Your only experience is right now. And if there's no thought intruding itself on right now, is there anything wrong? Is there anything missing? Is there anything lacking? Does anything need to be different? Can you imagine or actually detect a beginning to now? Did it start at some point in time? Can you detect an end to it? Just being with the now. And to do that, thinking falls away, because thinking will always be comparing it with this or that. And all the ego is a particular mode of thinking. That's all it is. There's nothing special about it, nothing significant, nothing demonic. It's just the thought of I. But in this moment, you don't even need the thought I, do you? You're here. You are the I without the thought. No comparison. So what does that mean? You're perfect. You have no beginning or end. You lack nothing. There has to be a thought comparing now with some other time, past or future, in order for now to be anything other than absolutely perfect. That's surrender to the truth, the self-evident truth, right? This is a seeing, right? It's not I'm not telling you to imagine this. I'm saying, just look. Take all the comparison out of right now. What's left? This is the seeing. And doing that consistently and honoring that, that's devotion. Because God is truth. God is the I am. That I am that you experience is way more than a person. It is the infinite self itself. Does that answer it for you? Faith? my my Sufi fan. Beautiful. Beautiful. Deteshom 85. GP, do you think it is possible that there is no afterlife and the spiritual ideas are experienced in this life that we know? And that spiritual ideas are experienced in this only life that we know? Well, yes. All there is now, right? Let me just go right for the jugular. Let me go right to the depth of it. All there is now. Right? So the idea of an afterlife is simply the projection into the future of now, isn't it? The projection into the past of now. I've had other nows, right? This now has always been. That's all there is. Can the now become not now? Can what is become what is not? In order for something that is to become what is not, something has to be there to see it happen. So the afterlife, yes, is a concept, just like the prior life is a concept. It's an idea. It's a useful idea, because it helps us transcend the sense of being this body, and that I began when this body began, and I end when this body ends. So there's no afterlife. This body falls away, and what's going to be different? Well, the content of my experience will be different, but will I be different? Will now not be now? So we speak about things like afterlife, and I talk about, after you die, this is what happens. But that's really a concession to the separate self, a concession to the human mind, to help to bring it more closely aligned with truth that transcend time. The truth, if it's the truth, must be the truth always and everywhere. It is changeless. Right? Well, you are that truth. The I am is the truth. What could else be? How could there be truth without consciousness to recognize it? Therefore, consciousness is the truth. It is what is. It is unchanging and eternal. So for it, there's no pre-life, there's no afterlife. There's only now. And that is the actual experience. So we use terms like past lives and karma and that sort of stuff. But it really is a lesser teaching. Right? It is a concessionary teaching. Right? To help people get to the point where they can see through time entirely. Time is an illusion. Right? There are simply things unfolding and happening, but that which is aware of them, and they could not unfold and happen if there wasn't consciousness aware of them. Otherwise there would be nothing. That consciousness is not changing, it is not shifting, it is not in time or space, and that is you. Does that answer it for you? Deteshom 85? Beautiful. Oh, Cheryl. Oh, it's Cheryl. Hey, Cheryl. I forgot how to switch accounts from Hands Together Piano. It's just me. What do the chakras have to do with awakening, or being blocked from awakening if they are blocked? The chakras are an interesting idea. There's a variety of ways of explaining them or teaching them. The way I do it is completely different. And I do it because it does have some uses, but this is satsang. So let's go right to the end state, right? The chakras have nothing to do with awakening. In fact, they don't really exist. It's a concept, it's an idea. Consciousness alone exists. Consciousness has all sorts of aspects, right? Infinite aspects, unlimited aspects. When I teach the chakras, I teach them as archetypes of consciousness to draw people's attention back to the consciousness that is undivided and pure, right? So I'll say that, there are 7 chakras, like 7 notes of the scale, like the 7 colors of the rainbow, right? But the pure light cannot be seen, cannot be detected, and cannot be blocked, right? It's invisible. When light passes through a prism, you see aspects of it. Red is light, violet is light, X-ray is light, ultraviolet is light, radio waves, they're all light, right? The ones we can see and the ones we can't see. But light in its wholeness cannot be seen, cannot be blocked, right? It's only when we see a part of it, that color appears, right? So, do not think your chakras can be blocked, right? Nothing can block the awakening. If it can, we're screwed. You get that? If something can block awakening, we're screwed. That means there's another power, contradicting and in direct opposition to reality. People give the devil this power. The devil did this, and the devil did this, and the devil's ruining the earth, and all sorts of things. Like, wait a minute, where did the devil's power come from? They make him out as powerful as God, almost, right? Where did that come? It's completely made up. We experience the sense of being blocked. We call it a devil, or we call it a blocked chakra, we call it a psychological pattern, or we call it anything, right? There are no blocks. You're not blocked. Not for 1 minute, not for 1 second should you regard yourself as blocked. And I'll prove it to you. Are you hearing my words? Is consciousness ever blocked? Doesn't consciousness need to be there and even to perceive a block? Right? Say, I'm veiled, I can't see the true self. Right? Well, wait a minute, what's seeing the veil? Right? You cannot be blocked when you know yourself as consciousness. Consciousness is never blocked. The block has to be perceived by consciousness. Therefore, it's not a block to consciousness. Yeah, it may be standing in the way of something I'm trying to see out there, and I think, oh, I'm out there. I've got to get to me, and I'm out there, and I'm blocked. Well, wait a minute. You're not out there. You're here looking at the block, right? And the block's temporary. Eventually, it's going to fall away. So don't give it any kind of authority whatsoever. It doesn't have any. The devil has no power. The only power the devil has is to convince you that he has power. That's it. He's got to convince you to mess yourself up. And they go, oh, the devil made me do it. Right? So, when I teach them, again, it is a concession. It is a way of trying to bring people out of our overtly materialistic view of things and give some kind of freedom to see that there's a beautiful functioning happening in the universe, right? The chakras are not these spinning vortexes of light, right? That are located somewhere in your body. That's not what they are. Those are metaphors. They're metaphors for aspects of the self. The primitive drive for safety, the drive for pleasure, the egoic mind, the heart, expansion, altruism, creation, vision, and spirituality. And in the model, not the model I choose because I put them in a circle, but the traditional model in Kundalini, you'll see the chakras, and you'll see wrapped around the center are 2 snakes. The 2 snakes correspond. They use snakes because they molt their skin. They are completely transformed. It's a model to represent the transformation, consciousness shedding the skin of identification with the body and opening itself to the awareness of consciousness liberated from the body. It represents the rising of consciousness from the purely animal instinct to spiritual transcendence. Right? So they're symbolic. They're a symbol. They're a representation of something. They're not a real thing. So don't attach to them any kind of characteristic whatsoever. Does that help, Cheryl? Yeah. Sometimes I think I just shouldn't even teach this stuff at all anymore. A lot of stuff I don't. I simply don't teach a lot of the stuff that I taught 10 years ago because now it's even more distracting than ever, and I'm just bored with it. What can I say? David and I say, thank you for your answer. Received loud and clear. The Supreme Architect. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, the Supreme Architect in the house. We got the big guy here. I'm new too. Welcome, welcome. So good to have you. So good to have you. And Linus, didn't say the pineal gland was the seat of consciousness. Well, people do. But I appreciate your response because it was humbling. I would certainly not get caught in spiritual distractions. Yeah. Yeah. And I get that you didn't think that. But it's kind of an in thing. It's a trendy thing to talk about now. All sorts of people are kind of jumping on it. You know, basically your law of attraction marketers have really jumped on it. You know, reprogramming the pineal gland and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, don't get caught in spiritual distractions. The only thing that matters is you, your own self-awareness. Battery check here real quick. Yeah, your self-awareness is what matters, right? And nothing can get in the way of that, and it does not depend on the body. It depends on no circumstances. It doesn't depend on the past. It doesn't depend where you came from. It has nothing to do with gender, belief, anything, right? There's nothing in the way of you and knowing who you are. There can't be any block to you being what you already are, right? We just have to transcend the mind's beliefs about who we are, the mind's image that it holds of us. If we believe that's me, I'll find myself seeking enlightenment. You are enlightenment. If it's real, it must be here now. It can't be something that happens later. It can't be the result of a cause. It can't be the effect of a cause, can it? Because that means it has a beginning. And it isn't truth. It's not reality. Reality can't have a beginning or an end, right? And we're talking about the reality that is you. Thanks, Linus. Christine, is the soul in me or am I in the soul? Soul is you. There is no soul separate from you, is there? Soul is just another word for the self. People talk about my soul, and I go, okay, well, who are you? See, I have an immortal soul. That is the way a lot of Christians and Jews, the Abrahamic tradition, I have a soul, and I go, okay, who are you? Does that mean the body has a soul? That means the I is the body? Right? I'm going to die, and my soul is going to go to heaven. Well, who are you? Right? Soul is another word for consciousness, self-awareness. And it's a nice word. I love that word, right? Soulful. It's artistic. It's creative. It's dancing, right? It's grooving, right? So I see the soul as an aspect. You know, it's kind of the meaty, you know, let's dance kind of aspect of consciousness, right? So it's not in you, and nor are you in it. You are it, and it is you. Right? It's just another word for you that has a particular kind of flavor to it that I really like. I like that flavor. Soul music, soul food, full of soul. God, he's so soulful. You listen to a singer, right, that really delivers. Oh, he's so soulful, right? It represents that kind of you know what I'm talking about. You taste it, right? You can hear it. You're some performer, a musician or something, or a speaker that touches you, right? Yeah, that's it. It's almost an indefinable quality, right? But the quality, the essence of that quality is you. It's your being. It's the nature of existence, the nature of consciousness. Jay, does that answer for you, Christine? Oh, thank you for that question. Yeah. Even though with the ever-changing forms, there's always continuation to newer forms, consciousness is like the blank piece of paper, giving life to many drawings. We in our life story is a small aspect. Yeah, perfect, yes. In the grand scheme of things, yes. You are the grand scheme of things. But, consciousness is not just this, is not nothingness. It is the blank background against which everything else is perceived, and from which everything else emerges. Because it is infinite, it cannot be compressed into any particular form. But that's why it's, right? Thank God. Because if it wasn't, we'd all be limited in some way. It might be a big universe, but we would be limited. We'd run out of steam eventually. But the nature of consciousness being emptiness, not nothingness, it is empty of any particular quality. It has no limits or definitions, which allows it to have infinite range of expression. So it can give rise to all forms. And there's a continuity, right? It just doesn't jump from one form to another, right? It's just this wonderful constant progression that never stops. It's the flower that never stops opening. This is the nature of the dynamic aspect of consciousness. There is the formless aspect of consciousness, which is just the pure being, the pure emptiness, the absolute awareness. And then there's the dynamic aspect of it, which is consciousness simply pondering its own nature, right? It's simply thinking about itself, you might say. And the thoughts, or images, for lack of a better word, because not really thoughts, they're what we experience as the universe and everything in it. It's really the mind of God. It's a nice way to put it. It's just you're experiencing the mind of God, which is inexhaustible, right? And never captures the whole. Right? Great question. Thank you, Jay. Great comment. Sue A, nice to see you again. Nice to see you. Supreme Architect. How about mind? Is awakening only for the being, or is it also for the mind? For example, knowing the false globe earth truth and seeing that the earth is flat. The mind is an object in consciousness, right? It does not have being in and of itself. Nothing does. This is what Buddha meant by saying no self, right? It didn't mean we don't exist. It wasn't nihilism. What he's saying is that no object exists independently of the consciousness that is witnessing it. That consciousness is being, Sat Chidananda. Being, consciousness, or knowing I am, and the happiness that arises out of that. Right? So awakening is the being awakening from identification with the mind. And the mind is just a form. That's all. The mind doesn't wake up, right? The guy in the dream doesn't wake up. The guy on TV can't turn the channel. They're a reflection. So the mind doesn't wake up, because the mind isn't awake now. It's not consciousness. All the mind is are thoughts appearing in and to consciousness, right? So it is only consciousness that can awaken. Only that which is can awaken to the truth of its being. And of course what you'll find out is what awakens is awakening itself. And the reality is consciousness has never been asleep. The image of someone sleeping has simply been the dream appearing in consciousness. This is the play, the Leela of consciousness. And by play, it doesn't mean it's always fun, right? Just like a Shakespeare play, sometimes the last scene, the stage is littered with bodies, but it's still a play, right? So even the one who awakens is an image being perceived by the eternal awakeness. Okay? And in that process of awakening, we begin to see through the illusions. The earth isn't flat. We can see that. Some delusion now wants to cling to that because it's willfully ignorant. It doesn't want to have its beliefs challenged because there's a certain amount, there's vulnerability in that, right? Because I have identified with my beliefs. So it feels as if the earth is flat. No, it's not. I'm going to hold to this, right? right? The sun is rotating around the earth, right? Or whatever it is, white supremacy, male supremacy. These are all delusions that we want to cling to because they make us feel safe, because we've identified with them so much that to challenge them feels as if it's a challenge to me, when in fact the truth is liberating. Right? But the more important part is that your first part of the question is that only consciousness can awaken. That which is not conscious can't awaken. So know yourself as consciousness, and you'll find that you have been and always will be eternally awake. Wonderful. Thank you, Supreme Architect. Heather. Hello, Heather. Glad to be here from PA with you all. Glad to have you. Oh, boy. It jumped around on me again. There we go. Heather says, I've been sharing your meditations with my 16-year-old daughter, Jess. Oh, the ones whose account you used to use. And they are really helping her with the anxiety she experiences. Perfect. That's the beauty of being introduced to this young. The meditation part, non-dual inquiry. People have to come to it naturally. I don't automatically just kind of go right into non-dual inquiry, especially with youngsters, because it can be very confusing. There's so much going on. But a meditation like that, that's just so self-evident, I can go to this place where I can witness all my feelings and the like. It doesn't have to go any further than that for now. And yes, it will alleviate anxiety. And because at 16, she has yet to solidify so much into a sense of identity. But for teenagers, that's what they do. They go identity. They're trying to find their place for them. That there's a wonderful openness that this stuff can sink deeply in, and it will help her to really come to a sense of self that is confident and beautiful and discerning, right? Without nearly the amount of struggle that most teenagers go through. Heather's so appreciative of you. Oh, thank you, Heather. Beautiful. And give my love to Jess for me. Mary, I realize that one must have a real interest in who and what they are. I was raised that I had better seek enlightenment or I will perish. Well, that's a way that it comes to many people. You know what? It's either this or suffer. Are we back? Are we back? One of my devices, the battery ran out, so I had to switch to another. My backups. It would be nice if I actually had a studio somewhere. I'd just go in and do this and leave, and everything always worked. Oh my. One of these days. Okay. Let me make sure. I think it was only out for a couple of seconds there. I do see there's interest as well as pressure to wake up. How to separate them? I think it's all due to religious beliefs. Well, the pressure is coming from religious beliefs. But look at it this way. Look at it this way. As I was beginning to say, and I don't know if you heard the beginning of this, but Christ put it beautifully. He told the story of the man who was a successful man, and he owned this big wheat field. But obviously he had some political enemies or something, because in the middle of the night, his enemies snuck in and they planted tares amongst the wheat. Well, a tare is a weed, right? Well, they started to grow, and the manservants came to him and said, "We found all these tares, and your enemies have planted wheat or weeds in there. Shall we pull up the weeds?" And he says, "No, don't do that, because you might pull up the wheat with it, right? But wait, let them grow together until the harvest, and then we can clearly see. And we'll take the wheat, put it in my barn, so we'll take the weeds to be burned. Now the interesting thing is he used, the example he used was the wheat, the tares. And tares are a very interesting, are a very interesting weed in that when they look like wheat while they're growing, when they mature they turn black. They're really easy to tell them apart. And I am running out of battery on my computer, down to 6%. I'm going to keep an eye on it. So I may not get to as many this week as I had hoped. Although I could walk over to my car and plug it in. I suppose I could do the rest of Satsang from my car. Anyway, watch very carefully, right? Allow the maturity to grow, right? Feed the interest, and notice that pressure is always the ego, which wants things to be different. Than wants to force something. It's trying to force you into something, right? You don't have to force yourself into being who you are. You are who you are, and you always will be. So you don't have to force anything. So when you feel that pressure in your body, just take a step back from it, feel it, say, and just acknowledge it, right? And it will eventually, as your insight matures, it will eventually begin to just fall away on its own accord. Well, I am going to lose my computer here soon. I guess I have to buy another battery, another external battery. So I'm going to just have to cut it off today at here. Boy, I'm really sorry for that. Sorry about that. At any rate, yeah, I have everything. I can't move it all into the car, keep you all here. So I'm just going to take these last few moments to remind you all that my radio show is going to be on Om Times Radio. I will be sending out notification over the next, well, probably tomorrow and Tuesday, letting everybody know. So please send an email to support@gpwalsh.com if you're not on my mailing list to find out about the radio show. It's at 1 o'clock Eastern, and replays will be going on all the time. It'll end up being syndicated through, Podbean and iTunes and Spotify and iHeartRadio as well. So you'll be able to have access to it. So on that note, thank you all for being here. Yes, you've answered my question beautifully. I can feel the warmth of the wisdom in your words. I love you, my sheik. Oh, I love you too, Faith. Oh, thank you. I asked the divine honestly to send me a teacher who speaks from love and understands my longing to help me come back. And I got that in you. Oh, so beautiful. So beautiful. Thank you. All right, everybody. Thank you. I love you all. Namaste.